Welcome all of you. So, continuing with the topic of environmental impact assessment. Previously, we studied about what is EIA, what are different types of EIA, rapid and comprehensive, and what are the different stages of EIA along with the case study of Terry hydropower plant. So, in today's lecture, we will be looking at different EIA notifications, that is environmental impact assessment notifications, and the committee involved at state level or national level. There is a EAC, that is expert appraisal committee, which typically goes through those EIA reports and makes a decision whether to grant, approve it or not, which later becomes the basis for clearance of like the environmental clearance. So, let us look at how this EIA or EIA notification have been evolving in India. So, it was, if you remember the previous lecture, EIA was introduced in India in 1978 for river valley projects. Okay. But like the official, like the notification of EIA, the first notification came on 27th January 1994 and it was under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. And this was the first notification which made mandatory environmental impact assessment for most of the projects which are at like the bigger scale. In 2006, a comprehensive EIA notification came into existence which included public participation and it expanded the range of EIA projects further. So, in 1994 notification, public consultation or public hearing was not there and that was included in 2006. Also, the number of projects that needed EIA was limited in 1994 notification. It was expanded in 2006. After this 2006, a significant notification or the new draft notification came in 2020. It is called as draft notification because it is not yet approved like 94 or 2006 notification. This is still under draft phase, but there have been so many amendments made in this notification which we will go through in today's lecture. So, this notification was focused on faster clearance, the digitalization and fewer public consultation. So, since like after 2006 or 2005, there has been a huge growth or exponential growth in the industries, factories, startups in India. The time required for clearance or the bureaucracy involved in getting those environmental clearance, that was becoming a cause of concern for many project proposers. So, this EIA notification focused on reducing that time required for clearance and in that process, they reduced some of the stringent requirements for some specific type of projects. They reduced the public consultation thing and tried to make everything online so that the approvals can be obtained faster and it is accessible to wider public. So, let us start look at with one by one each notification. But before that, what is a EIA notification, the general EIA notification? It is a key legal framework under the Environment Protection Act 1986 and it is issued by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. So, it is like a legal document which has to be followed by all the corporates or all the projects that comes under this category of having EIA. And it is this notification or framework which lays down the process for identifying the likely environmental impacts of the proposed projects before they are granted environmental clearance. That is what the definition of EIA is, and based on that EIA definition, the EIA notification is also formulated. So, the first one which came in 1994, what did it say? It said environmental clearance is mandatory for all new projects and expansion as well as modernization of existing projects covering 29 different categories. So, it made environmental clearance mandatory for those 29 categories of projects and the validity of environmental clearance was typically 5 years. So, examples of those, some of the categories out of those 29 included mining, thermal power plants, river valley hydropower projects, ports, harbors, airports, petrochemical complexes, refineries, highways, industrial estates. So, you can look at the magnitude of these kind of projects is huge. Each of these projects needs huge land area, huge capital investment and it affects different components of the environment drastically. It needs resettlement of people, it needs the cutting down of forest, taking some agricultural forestry land, then exploring. The mining will be like digging of land for like getting those ores and minerals out, and all these projects are highly energy intensive also, and most of the projects energy will be generated using fossil fuels. So, we are going to have huge environmental impacts in terms of air emissions or greenhouse gas emissions or the resource depletion. Okay. So, all these projects would come under those 99 categories. In addition to this project, there are several more. So, projects with investment greater than 50 crore required clearance from central government and below 50 crore from state government. This was the part of the notification in 1994, but this notification did not include public consultation, and it was later introduced in April 1997. So, that can be considered as a limitation of this notification, but then there are many positives, like at least it made companies and corporates or the project proponents feel responsible and to consider environmental impact into their project before they get the clearance or before they start the project. So, the limitations are like the centralized system, because it came directly under the central government or the state government. It caused lots of delays and bureaucratic backlog, and also there was no digitalized or online portal at that moment of time. So, there was lack of transparency and no defined timelines for granting environmental clearance. It could vary from 1 year to 2 years. Then weak post clearance monitoring as well as no public involvement. So, these were some limitations of EIA 1994, most of which were later addressed in the subsequent notification. One more thing, so if there is a notification, it is not like it is constant, it cannot be changed. Any EIA notification can be amended at any point of time, and there have been amendments in EIA notification almost every year. The point is, like in 2006, 2014, 2020, there were some major significant like big amendments, that is why they have been mostly talked about, but you would find that almost every year there are some amendments made in these EIA notifications. So, in 2006 notification, what happened was there was a categorization of projects. So, unlike in 1994, which was like mainly centralized, like one type of projects, only on the basis of the cost of project is 50 crore, it can be decided as central level or state level. There was no further categorizing beyond that. But here in 2006 notification, it decentralized the environment clearance project by categorizing them in two types, category A projects and category B projects. So, category A will require national or central level appraisal and mainly from ministry. Category B, there are two types of projects again, B1 and B2. B2 are the projects which can be exempted from environmental clearance or environmental impact assessment. So, it can be decided at the stage of screening of in EIA whether it projects belongs to B1 category or B2 category, and if it is B2, it is exempted from EIA or environmental clearance. B1 projects would need state level environmental approval. So, that is a category A and B, two types of projects. And the process of EIA, it has 4 stages as per EIA notification 2006. Screening, which is required mainly for category B projects, because category A projects, all the projects need mandatory EIA. In B, B1 needs EIA and B2 does not need EIA, that is why this stage of screening is applicable mainly for category B projects. Then scoping, public consultation and appraisal. So, these 4 key stages should be there in the sequential order as per this notification of 2006. Then there was a draft notification in 2020, and it was released by Ministry of Environment, Forest, Climate Change on March 12, 2020, and when the new draft was released by ministry, they sought comments from public, and they gave almost like 3-4 months to get comments from public, and almost 1.7 million comments were obtained from public, and majority of them found the draft unacceptable, because it was realized by the public that the stringent nature of EIA framework was being diluted in the name of progress or like speeding up the environmental clearance process. So, the EIA framework was being diluted, and those being the main concerns, there was a backlash from the public. If you look at the overview of the key points of EIA 2020, it included categorization, that is fine, expanded project scope, reduction in public consultation time, expert committees, post facto clearance. This is where a lot of issue like concerns were raised, because if there is a project which is likely to have environmental impact, how can it be given clearance once the project is already implemented? Okay. So, then online submission and processing, that was a good thing. Post clearance monitoring, that is also fine. Violation and penalties. So, these were some key provisions, but in this the post facto clearance and the reduction in public consultation, these were the issues which lot of environmentalists and people did not like. Let us look at the apprehension from the public side. So, these are some quotes from different news or magazines, and overall almost everyone said like environment took a backseat in the EI notification of 2020. It is not good for Western Ghats, it is both anti-environment and anti-people, can't agree to many recommendations of EIA draft notification, and then it is against the concept of polluter pays principle. Polluter pays principle is like someone who is taking responsibility for their products, we also call it as like EPR, extended producer responsibility. For example, a company is producing water bottles and then selling it, but after the water is consumed, if people are disposing those bottles or throwing them anywhere in the environment, the company may come up with some incentives like you return that bottle and maybe get 1 rupee for that returned bottle. So, that comes under extended producer responsibility. Similarly, there is a polluter pays principle, like someone who is having the huge more environmental impact should be penalized more or should be more responsible for mitigating those measures compared to those who are polluting less. But after this, though this notification was not approved in whole, there were several changes made in the environmental impact assessment notification, more than hundreds of changes, and these changes were made by government through office memorandums. It is like it is a formal document of conveying some information mainly by the government or some like government authorities, and the aspect of this office memorandum is that they are not considered as an act of change of law. So, they really do not need to undergo public consultation. So, whatever points ministry wanted to include in the 2020 notification, those which were found to be positive in favor of India's like progress and development, those were included in the notification through office memorandums, and those points then need not undergo the public consultation. So, that was about different EIA notifications. So, at present the companies which follow the notification, it is 2006 primarily, and 2020 draft, though even it is not finalized, there have been many amendments made through office memorandums which are being implemented at present. The main participants of EIA. So, who are the main participants? First of all, like EIA is applicable to both public and private sectors, and there are 6 main participants. The one who proposed the project proposer. Second, one who prepares the EIA report, that is environmental consultant, that can be the member of the same company or it can be a hired third party consultant, and environment consultant prepares EIA or EIA report on behalf of the project proponent. Then third is state or national level pollution control board. Then fourth is public, because public hearing is inherently a part of EIA now. So, they have the right to express their opinion. So, they are the fourth participant. The fifth one is the impact assessment agency, which will make a decision on environmental clearance. And last is regional center of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. There are I think more than 8 or 10 regional centers of the ministry at present in India, and they are also involved in this process of EIA. The expert appraisal committee is the one which is appointed by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and this expert appraisal committee, there are some specific guidelines, like there should be one chairman, one secretary and then some members, and the number of members in EAC should be 15 maximum, and their tenure is about 3 years. So, but the members who would be forming those committee, they have to come from these disciplines: ecosystem management, air pollution, water pollution control, water resource, flora fauna management, land use planning, social sciences, project appraisal, ecology, environmental health, and some representatives of NGOs and persons associated with environmental issues. Let us look at the composition of the committee. So, chairman, it is often an outstanding and experienced ecologist or environmentalist or a technical professional with some managerial experience. And who is the member secretary, whose job is to call the meeting and do the review, conduct follow ups. So, the representative of impact assessment agency of MOEFCC will act as a member secretary. Both chairman and members, including member secretary, they serve in their individual capacities except nominated as representatives, and the tenure of all is around 3 years. It is extendable, but typically it is a 3-year tenure, and the number of members of a committee should not exceed 15. There is no limit on minimum number of, because but at least 5-6 members should be there in the committee. Typically you will find these committees comprising of 10 to 12 people. These are some examples of EAC, like this committee is for, like, say, mining, non-coal mining sector. You can see there is one chairman, one member secretary, and then there are other members, total 15. And this is for thermal power projects. You can see there is one chairman, one member secretary, and then there are other members, and each of these members are from diverse backgrounds. They can be from academia, they can be policy makers, they can be from government institutions or labs or even companies, or they can be even people from NGOs or environmentalists. So, it is a diverse multidisciplinary team of experts which comprise this expert appraisal committee, and it is not like there is a single committee for all the projects and for all the regional offices. Depending on the region, the type of project, okay, there are numerous EACs. The member secretary chairman are also different for each of these committees. So, that is all. I think let us summarize. We started with what is exactly the EIA notification. It is a key, like, legal framework which is based on the definition of EIA, and we looked at 3 main notifications, right, 1994, 2006 and 2020. 2020 is not yet approved, it is still in the draft stage. Then we looked at what is the composition of the committee, or like who are the main participants or players in the process of EIA. There are 6 main players, okay. And after that we looked at, like, committee, like the expert appraisal committee. It can be either at state level or at central level, and it is different for different projects, and it has a chairman, one member secretary, and 10 to 12 members from diverse backgrounds. We looked at those areas from which these experts can be, and total members of the committee can be maximum 15, and the tenure year is 3 year, which is extendable. So, that was all about EIA notifications, committee and the participants of the EIA process. So, we will stop here. Thank you so much.